This is my feet. I definitely had my microphone on wrong, so hopefully y'all can hear me a lot better now. So this is the beach and some surfers and some people walking by, and I'm waiting for them to walk by so they don't think I'm really weird or recording. There actually was an osprey that flew by earlier, which was really cool, and I took a Snapchat of it, but I didn't save it. I wish I did. I couldn't figure out if it was an osprey because it was in airplane mode, and I've only ever seen an osprey fly in a helicopter mode, and I've seen them land too. It's really cool, but I was like, how is there an osprey around here? And I saw some jets earlier today, but I looked it up and there's no Air Force base around here. So, but there is Camp Lejeune. So maybe, definitely the osprey, I would say, because Marines fly ospreys. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's probably going to be a little loud. I try to put the microphone really close up to me. As you can tell, this week I am at the beach. Look at this. I'm here for a rock climbing training thing for my job at the university, and it just so happened to be at the beach. So I really wanted to finally do the video about and share with y'all how I knew God had called me into the Air Force to be a chaplain. I feel like I talk about that in every single other video I do, and I kind of give little blurbs, but I never actually say what happened. So this is the time, yay! And I think it's good that I share that, because a lot of the questions I get from y'all is, how do I discern that this is what God wants me to do? How do I know that? How am I able to figure that out? I'm nervous to know if this is what God wants for me. So this is my story with it. Take it as you would like, and I hope it's encouraging to you in some way, or I have no clue if it's anything. That's probably a lot better review. The beach, not me, the beach. So this dude right there is definitely in some sort of military aspect. Why? Because he's wearing a freedom shirt, and you can only get those on a base. So, because I'm definitely wearing kind of the same thing right now. So my story with how I thought or started subscribing to listening to God to become a chaplain in the military, the Air Force. Looking back on it, I really think that God had started stirring my affections for the military when I was really young. My plan in college, because I went and did my counseling degree, was to work with military, and everything I did was centered around like all of my projects were always centered around military and learning about PTSD. And well, the college I went to was a military college, even though I was a civilian. So that was really easy subjects to run tests on and do research on, because the whole university was pretty much like a base. It was really cool. It definitely helped transitioning into understanding how a base works when I went to like COT this summer in C2I2. But I thought I always had a heart for the military. When I was in high school, I really wanted to get like tattoos and stuff. And I remember my cousin was like, well, in the Air Force, you can't. He like sat me down and told me where I can and can't get a tattoo at if I wanted to be in the Air Force. And like, this was not on my brain at all. And I was like, okay, for sure. And I like wrote it down, and I was like, okay, so I can't get a tattoo here. The biggest thing that kind of opened my eyes up to it, that I wanted to do work with the military, was just for the fact that anytime anything military came on the TV or somebody military, something happened, I would bawl my eyes out like a baby. I finally was like, God, I think my heart is stirring for the military. Like, I have affections for this group of people, and somehow. So I took that as, I'm going to counsel them. And my thought process with that is, I have such a high honor and respect for military. And so my thought was, I want to be able to help them to where they can get back to what they need to be doing. I definitely brought my camera with me, and when people pass by me, I put my phone down and I take my camera out looking like I'm taking pictures. The Holy Spirit will comfort us so that we comfort others. And I read that as a kid, and I was like, I think this is opening my eyes that I need to help people and serve people, and how do I do that the best? So that's how counseling started. What's the best thing I can do in life? Like, almost. And then I thought, these people are putting a lot of risk in their life, and somebody needs to serve them. 2 years ago, I had a rough spot with God while I was in grad school doing counseling, to where I was not in any way listening to God. And I've always been a Christian pretty much since I was really young. But grad school, it just I don't know, it got into me that life was hard, and it got into me that I was going to struggle a lot in life. I fell away from God so bad, enough to where I daily pray that doesn't happen again, because I just messed up my life a lot in a lot of ways, and I thought that I had earned everything that I had gotten. And by the time that I got to graduation, the Lord had broken me down in a way that I have never experienced in my life, to where I realized that everything I had done in grad school, everything that had happened in my life, in no way did I earn it. It was by God's grace and God providing, and He equipped me with the tools to be able to do it. I actually was dating this one guy in grad school. Oh, there's a seagull. Oh, please don't. Oh, man. He wanted to be a Marine, and I thought that this was the guy. We had talked about a lot of things, to where we both thought we were each other's person almost. We were preparing for that life together, and then it wasn't meant to be. I think I was more upset with the fact that I felt like God had called me to somehow work with the military, and I thought it was in the capacity of being a wife in the military, and this guy was gearing up to be a Marine, and now he wasn't in my life anymore. And I think I was more upset with that than the fact that we broke up. God broke me in such a way to where I finally was like, God, whatever you want me to do with my life, what do you want, whatever chains I have on me, whatever pits I've been stuck in, get me out of them, break me out of them. I was like, I'm done with my own plans. I have made life hard myself, and I'm done with it. I'm just gonna listen to whatever the heck you have to say, because I'm exhausted. One of the questions that I brought up to God was, God, this relationship ended, but I still want to be a part of the military somehow, but I don't want to wait until I get my license for counseling. If you ask God an open-ended question like that, He might answer. He might answer in a way that you might not have ever expected. A lot of what God kept speaking over to me that summer was, I have made you capable to do things, but you haven't been listening to me when I tell you that you can do them. God bestowed upon me this motto of, I'm capable of doing this. A lot of that summer, God would ask me, He would be like, Amelia, ask me what you're capable of doing. Ask me if you're capable of doing this or capable of doing that. And one of the biggest things that He started revealing to me is, I gave you desires for a reason, and you need to not be putting that off on somebody else. You thinking that you're supposed to be dating all these guys that have certain qualities. He's like, I may have asked you to do that. So I was like, okay, what does that mean? So I took it as, okay, I have a desire to ride motorcycles. And I always just waited for a guy to date to ride motorcycles. And I bought a motorcycle on my own, and I learned on my own. So now I have a motorcycle. And so I just started going through with God, okay, what have you called me to do, instead of me trying to put that on somebody else. When it came to, for example, military stuff, He was like, I gave you that desire. I put that calling on your life, so you need to not expect some man to fulfill that for you. The choir, we had all these practices leading up to the July 4th service, and I would sit there and I would dread going to choir practice. And I was sitting there, I was like, oh my God, I don't want to go every practice, because we'd be singing the Battle Hymn of the Republic, and all the we sang the songs for all of the military branches, and probably the national anthem and stuff like that. And every single time that we would start singing these songs, I would just like be tearing up in choir practice, and I'm sitting there, I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, like trying not to cry in choir practice. I'm sure people are like, why the heck are you crying? At my church, we have extravagant things happen. Like, we have so many veterans that come back and they're all wearing their uniforms and they stand on stage, and like there are people that walk down the aisle with flags and there's streamers, and we're all wearing this like God and country shirts. And but I was like terrified of this day coming, and because I was like, I'm so afraid of what's gonna happen, because at this point I opened up my whole life. I was like, God, you do whatever the heck you want to do. And I was very nervous about the answer on that one. Obviously, this is what happened. So we got on stage, and I think the first service I was fine. I definitely was standing there. I was like, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. And I like locked everything up. I was like, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. And I think the first service I was fine. At this point, I'm mouthing the words because I was like, I can't just stand here and just not act like I can't. I have to at least act like I'm singing. But there's like streamers and all this stuff, and I just like not hold myself together. And so I'm sitting there with my dad, and it was I wouldn't say that I've ever really experienced this before too much. I start like not hearing anything. Like, it was the strangest thing. Like, the pastor was up on stage, like people are talking, people are probably still singing, I'm not too sure. But my ears start closing up, and I was like, what the heck is happening to me? And then this it sounded like a tornado almost was going off, and it was just like kind of noise. It was really weird. And I remember sitting there, and I remember the sanctuary like feeling like it was really, really bright for some reason. And I was just sitting there next to my dad, and I was like, what the heck is happening? Like, does everybody else hear this? And I'm like looking around like, what is this sound? What's going on? And then I heard I felt like I was asking me, Amelia, ask me what you're capable of doing. And this was something that we had already played the game of that whole summer of like, okay, God, like, let's look through what I'm capable of doing. And God, and I just felt like he was like, Amelia, ask me right now what you're capable of doing. And I was like, I don't want to ask because I'm going to get an answer that I'm terrified of. And so I sat there, I was like, no, I don't want to ask. I'm good. Like, I'm fine. I don't need to ask you. Like, we're just going to continue on our day. And he's like, no, like, please ask me what you're capable of doing. So I was like, okay, what am I capable of doing? And so I'm having this, like, secret meltdown, like, at church, like, with my dad right next to me. I was like, okay, God, like, what am I capable of doing? And his first response was being in the military. And I was like, no, I was like, no, sir, I'm not doing that. Like, there's no way I'm going to be in the military. And I sat there, and I was like, nope. And I was like, I don't think so. And a lot of things that God had already that summer, too, was preparing me for was, do not doubt something that I've already given you to do. Like, that instant doubt is not coming from me. So if you instantly doubt something, you need to start questioning why you're doubting it and who it's coming from. My first thought was, I can't do that. I'm a woman. And I was like, what the heck are you asking me to do, God? And then I was like, wait, no, like, we've already worked on this whole summer. What has he taught me that I'm capable of doing? And so I sat there a little bit, and I was like, maybe I should start looking into this a little bit. And I'm like, obviously sitting there by myself, like, or not by myself, my dad's like right next to me, but I was like having this whole freak out moment by myself. I sit in my car, and I start bawling my eyes out. And one thing that God had also been teaching me that summer was, before you make a big decision, you need to go to your counsel. You need to go to people that you trust and that you love and ask them for prayer. And I don't know what just happened, and I'm not too sure about this, but I think God just asked me to join the military. And I'm like crying, and I was like, I'm going to go home and tell my dad. And like, for me to do that, just number one, I was like telling my dad, like, my dad is like my favorite person in the world. So for me to tell my dad, I was like, that terrified me in itself. I drive home, and I get home, and my dad is sitting there, and I was like, Dad, I think I need to talk to you. And I just started bawling my eyes out. My poor dad, I'm like sitting there just like every tear I have in the world is just coming out. And my dad, I'm sure, is just sitting there like, what the heck just happened? I was like, I don't know how to tell you this, but, and I'm just like, crying. I'm sure he's like, oh my God, my daughter just like, I don't know, like wrecked her car or did something. And I just start crying. I was like, I just want to ask for your prayers right now. I think God just asked me to join the military. And my dad just sat there. And so like my dad is very, very cautious of me and my sister. Like he's very protective over both of us. And so I'm sure, like in my head, I was like, the first thoughts that's going to come to his mind is like, what if I get deployed? Like, what if something happens to me when I'm deployed? Like, I'm losing my baby girl. He just kind of like looked at me. He was like, you know, I kind of felt like this was coming. And I was like, what the heck? I knew this was coming. Like, I talked about this ever. And I sat there, I was like, what the heck is happening? Like, I was preparing my dad to be like, no, you can't do it. Like, you're my baby girl. Like, you can't be in any kind of harm's way ever. He told me about how apparently when I was pretty young, like middle school time frame, apparently my grandpa, who I look up to the most in my life, he was a Marine in World War II. Apparently I sat him down one time and I was like, I'm going to join the Air Force. Growing up, I made that comment that I was going to join the Air Force. And he was like, so this isn't the first I've heard of it. And I was like, well, it's kind of the first for me because I don't remember that at all. Next week, I started calling recruiters because I was like, I feel like this was clearly God was like, you got to do something. And so I started calling recruiters, having no clue what branch, no clue what I wanted to do. I just knew that I, in some way, needed to join the military. So I looked it up, and you can only be a social worker or like a psychologist. And I was like, well, I don't want to go do social work because I just got a master's in counseling. And I don't want to go back to school and be a psychologist. Like I came upon the description of a chaplain. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. I don't even know what this is. I have never heard of this in my life. So I started searching it, looking it up, and I was like, wow, this is essentially a missionary in the military. And that just intrigued me so much because I have always had a desire and a heart for missions. And so I started calling different branches. I was mainly looking at Navy. Well, you can only Navy is both Marines and Coast Guard. But I looked at Navy. I went to Navy recruiting office. I went to Army recruiting office. Didn't go to an Air Force recruiting office. And I called branches and called Air Force. And I actually got a lot more information from Army than I did anybody else. And they told me you have to, number one, be in seminary. And you have to have an endorser. And I was like, what's seminary? And they were like, you have to go get an MDiv at seminary. And I was like, yeah, but I just graduated with a master's in counseling. Like, is that not good? And they're like, no, you have to go get a master's in divinity. I was like, okay, well, I'll go get a PhD in divinity. And that'd be good, right? And they're like, no, you have to go get a master's. I was like, I don't know what anything that you're saying. I'm not listening. And so I looked it up and I was like, holy crap, I have to go get a 93 credit hour, another master's degree. Like I just graduated 2 months ago with a master's degree. And I was like, what? Are you serious? I was like, okay, well, let's just try. And so that was my whole thought process on all of this was, let's just try. So I applied to several different programs, got accepted to all of them, and had my acceptance letter in hand, and I started calling up endorsers, and that all this stuff took a couple of weeks. Called up endorsers, found the one that I am with now, and I have adored them since day one, mainly because one of the assistant endorsers sat on the phone with me for over an hour one day and broke down with me what chaplains do in each branch of military, and I found that so enlightening. And I adored and loved the mission of the Air Force, and he presented it. He's retired Air Force chaplain, so I think he spruced up the Air Force side a lot on the phone. But number one, I knew, and this was even before they endorsed me, I knew that this would be my endorser because of how they cared for me before I was even a part of their program. I realized with Navy that was not a good plan because I had taken a cruise a year beforehand, and I had a panic attack every day on that cruise, so I was like, I probably shouldn't do Navy. So anyways, I went through Army first. They gave me a lot of information. They were very welcoming and opening, and I really appreciated how much they helped me out. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to take all the information you just told me, and I'm going to walk into the Air Force recruiter. And that was a difficult process with that recruiter. Everything on that path was really hard, and I've determined that the devil doesn't want me to do anything that I'm doing right now. And so everything on that path, it seemed like I barely succeeded at anything, but I did, and I made it through. And I just took every day as, well, I'm just going to see what happens. And I just kept going off that track of, I'm just going to see what happens. I'm going to put my effort into this. And so I started putting my application in, started getting accepted to things, got accepted to my endorser after like flying out to Texas and did interviews and wrote papers, things like that. I got accepted by them, and then I got accepted, I don't know, there's a couple other things you have to be accepted by in the chaplain world, and I would thought that there was a lot more interviews involved. I made it through MEPS, even though maybe I'll make a video one day about my MEPS experience. That was terrible. Somehow made it through MEPS. Recruiter didn't think I was going to. And step by step, I was getting accepted to things. And I would question, I was like, I'm confused. Like, I thought I was supposed to have interviews. And he was like, well, your packet was good enough to where you didn't need one. So I was like, oh, okay. So the sun's going down. But anyway, long story short, this is where I'm at. Like, I'm in the candidacy program, and hopefully soon on track to be done in about a year and a half, and then I'll reappoint. So yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed. We'll do the beach during this. Thanks for coming by my channel. I hope you enjoyed and got something out of my story of being called into the Air Force. And I feel like it's daily something that I make sure that God is continuing to reaffirm for me. I'm not like, are you sure this is it? Like, I'm not really like that anymore, but I just keep asking that He provides just clarification that this is what I need to continue doing and how I need to conduct myself in that. And it has honestly been one of the best experiences of my life already, and I adore it with everything inside of me. And I'm so amazed and honored that God called me to do this and continues to call me to do it. So but thanks for coming by my channel. I hope you got something out of this, and please let me know if you let me know your story. I want to know your story. I want to know how you discerned God's calling, or how you are actively trying to discern that, how you are able to decipher that this is what God wants for you, or how you're still trying to do that. Also, let me know if there's a way I can be praying for you. I always think about y'all all the time, because some of y'all can get pretty personal, sending just confusion of knowing what God wants for you. So I love to see that, and I think it's good because it helps me know how to pray for you. So let me know your story. I want to know how you knew that God called you for this, because I know a lot of candidates that are going this summer are looking at my YouTube channel. So I want to know how you did that. So yeah, just subscribe if you can, if you haven't already. Send me a message, say hello, and thanks for coming by, and I hope you enjoyed looking at the beach. Yeah.